welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Miranda. I'm a homeschooling mom to two, and I am obsessed with all things books. I am finally getting around to my June and July book haul. I put off June's book haul because things got really hectic in July and I didn't have time to film, and I thought it would be simple to just combine the two, and now I have a huge stacks actually of books to share with you guys because I did a lot of book shopping the last 2 months. So I am very excited to share these with you, but be warned, this video might be a little long, so you might want to bump up that playback speed if that's something you're interested in, speeding this along. So I have quite a range of things. I have children's, I have picture books, I have middle grade, I have YA, and I even have a few adult fiction thrown in here. So hopefully there's a little bit for everybody. Definitely some really awesome finds the last couple months. I also have an update at the end of this video I'd like to share with everyone, and yeah, let's get started. So before I get into the actual books, I'm excited to share that this video is sponsored by History Unboxed. History Unboxed is an educational resource production company. They create tons of different secular history activities, including subscription boxes, which contain activities from different historical time periods and cultures, which are really awesome, to physical printed books and ebooks. I have one of their books they sent me, which they were nice enough to provide for my review, and this is History Unboxed, Ancient History of Secular Exploration of the World, Volume 1. I did an in-depth flip through of this on my Instagram page, so if you go to my profile on Instagram, you will see that. You can also check them out in my bio below. I have linked their website so you can check out all their amazing things for yourself. They're making an awesome addition to our homeschool for sure, and I highly recommend them in your own personal homeschool studies. So now let's get on to the books. I'm gonna start out with children's stuff and picture books first, and then move on to the middle grade and YA as we go. So first, to start us off, I found this one in a used bookstore and it was amazing. This is Oscar's American Dream by Barry Wittenstein. This follows a character named Oscar who shows up at Ellis Island at the turn of the century in the early 1900s as an immigrant and starts his own barbershop. And it follows that street and his barbershop throughout the 20th century. And it's just really cool. Follows a bunch of different historical events, everything from the Great Depression, both world wars, civil rights. It's just really cool to see all the historical events that they include in this book, and to show you how our culture has changed in a relatively short amount of time. And this was just a really cool fictional pairing for US history studies down the road, and it's just a really neat find that I hadn't heard anything about prior. So that's a nice addition. Next up, we have The Proudest Blue, A Story of Hijab and Family. I have loved this book for a while. I checked it out from the library a long time ago, but I finally own it, which I'm excited about. It explores Muslim culture and what the hijab means in Muslim culture, and it's just a really awesome picture book exploring the pride from it, and you know, especially from a family who isn't Muslim and doesn't come from that culture. I think it's a really great way to kind of explain the significance and how impactful it is for the women who wear them. And it's just really well done, but really well illustrated. I really love this picture book quite a lot. Next up, we have The Atlas of Space Adventures. This one I also found in a used bookstore and I thought it looked really neat. It has a lot of things about astronauts, the International Space Station, space travel from the moon to Mars, satellites, rovers, everything you could possibly imagine in that field. and it's just really well done. It also comes with an app, like it says on the front, which pairs like videos and stuff to your reading. So that was a really cool addition for our science studies. Next we have Fry Bread, a Native American family story by Kevin Noel Maillard. And this one is another one I've loved for quite a while. I just hadn't owned it in my own collection. This is a really awesome tale exploring fry bread and what it means to indigenous cultures. And it's just a really, really well done little story and talking about the cultural and historical significance of it. More nonfiction stuff in the back, which is really interesting. And I really love the fact that this book includes the recipe for fry bread, so you can try it out for yourself to be more immersed in the culture. So this is a classic, and I'm really glad we finally own it. Next, this is a new release, which I was really, really excited about getting. This is Forgotten Founders, Black Patriots, Women Soldiers, and Other Thinkers and Heroes Who Shaped Early America. This is made by the same publisher who did True West. If you've watched my previous videos, I shared on here before, that book explored untold, lesser told stories, I guess I should say, from people out in the West during Western expansion time period in history. This follows the American Revolution with lesser told stories of individuals who contributed to the revolution and our independence. And you know me, I'm all about exploring untold stories that aren't often included in traditional history texts, and it's just really amazing to me how many people I didn't know about when I find these books, because there's so many incredible individuals from a wide range, from people of color to women to indigenous peoples, and it's just really very interesting how these stories just don't get told in traditional texts about our history, and they're so important. And I really just love anytime there's a really good resource that explores that area in history. So highly, highly recommend both this one and the True West one I showed previously. Next we have the Usborne See Inside Germs. This is part of the Usborne STEM series. It is a lift the flap book, which, you know, my kids are all about, because anything they can physically touch in a book is always a plus. This is a little older than they are right now, of course, but I think it really does a really good job about exploring microbiomes, viruses, single-cell organisms, and how they interact with us. And of course, it's very interactive. As you can see, there's different flaps you can open and explore, and it's just really, really cool. It talks a lot about vaccines and viruses and health, and that's a really timely topic for this day and age, so that's really good as well to have on hand. Next we have We Are All Different, A Celebration of Diversity by Tracy Turner. This is illustrated by Asa Gilland. I am sorry if I pronounced that wrong. She is a really cool illustrator. I love a lot of different stuff she's done. She's just very whimsical and very unique in her illustration style, and I love it. This book is very, very important in my opinion. It explores the concept of diversity and all the meanings behind it, such as ethnic diversity, nationality, cultural, disability, gender identity, orientation, everything. And it's just really interesting to me how well they explain these topics and talk about why they're important. And I am always a big proponent of sharing with kids how we are all different and how that's okay, and how we should celebrate our differences, and this does a really great job about doing that, and it's just really interesting. So this one was a really cool find. Next up, I have A Walk in Paris by Salvatore Rubino. This is a really neat book exploring the city of Paris, and it shows all the different landmarks, points of interest, just really well illustrated as well. Really neat. I really like it. I believe it'll make a really good addition to when we get to Europe and geography studies down the road. So that was really cool to find. Next up, I have Big Ideas for Young Thinkers, written by Jamia Wilson and illustrated by Andrea Pippins. This is a wide-eyed book, and you know how I feel about wide-eyed publications. This one is really cool. It's a really philosophical book for young kids, talking about these big questions and the people who've asked these questions and what their answers are, and it's just really interesting. A really good book for a lot of conversations to arise, and you know, just introducing kids to the idea of coming up with your own thoughts and you know what you believe in, and it's just really cool. It's just a really good conversation starter, I think, as well. So that was really interesting to find. Next up, I found Evolved, an illustrated guide to evolution by Lucas Freire. And this is a DK publication book, and I really like this one. I am all about an evolution book for kids to add to our science curriculum, and this does it really well. The illustrations are really cool, and it talks about these evolution concepts in really bite-sized, digestible ways, and it's just, I think it's really well done. So this will be a big plus when we're studying evolution in our elementary biology levels. Next up, I have Memphis Martin and the Mountaintop, The Sanitation Strike of 1968 by Alice Faye Duncan. This is a really awesome book if you haven't checked it out already. It's a really good picture book exploring that time period in the civil rights movement, and it'll make another really great addition to our U.S. history studies. Just so much information packed in here, and there's some poetry in here as well, and a ton of nonfiction information in the back as well, giving you timelines and more information, and it's just really well done. So highly recommend you check that out when you can. Then I have Yes We Will, Asian Americans Who Shaped This Country by Kelly Yang. This is a really awesome picture book, giving little mini bios on the many Asian Americans who contributed and made great achievements in this country, both in a historical context and modern day. Really vastly different in the subjects it covers, everything from civil rights to the arts, movies, music. I already said politics, didn't I? Social justice, science, everything. So I think it's just really well done, and it does give in the back some really great information on the history, from immigration, the Chinese Exclusion Act, the railroads. It's just a really well done nonfiction story, and I really like this one quite a lot. Next up, we have This Is New York, and this is very similar in a way, I guess, to that Walk in Paris book I showed you a bit earlier. This is about New York though, so this will come up when we are studying our US geography, and this is Enlightening Literature levels 1 or 2, I can't remember, but I did know it was coming up, so it's always nice to have it on hand. Like the Paris book, it explores the many landmarks of the city, takes you around kind of a little tour, and talks about the cultural and historical information of the city, and it's really well done. This is also a series of books covering a bunch of different cities around the world, so this just happens to be the New York one. And then next up, I have Secrets of the Sea, the story of Gene Power, revolutionary marine scientist by Evan Griffith. This is a really cool book to add to our biology studies down the road. It's really beautifully illustrated and tells her story really well. A woman I knew nothing about prior to reading this book, and it's very interesting, so that was a good find. Next up, I believe I showed this in prior videos, I just actually bought it this time. This is What's Inside a Flower and Other Questions About Science and Nature. This is by Rachel Ignatowski. She has done a variety of other books, Women in Science, Women in Sports. She's done so many, and this just happens to be one of the many she's done, and I love everything she does. Her illustrations are so beautiful. This one does a really good job about exploring everything involved with flowers, from root systems to the water cycle to pollination and photosynthesis. It's just really, really well done and very, very beautiful. So that was nice to find. Next up, I have Speak Up, Speeches by Young People to Empower and Inspire. This is a big collection, really thick, of speeches made by young leaders. And it gives a little bio on who the person is and the speech or statement that they made. It's really diverse in where these people focus their studies. Everything such as social justice to education to environmentalism and science and STEM, and it's just really, really good. I'm all about a book that is empowering kids to use their voice and telling them, you know, your voice matters and it's important. So this was really awesome, and I will definitely be busting this out in future studies. Next up, we have Black Music Greats, 40 Inspiring Icons by Oliver Cajun. This is another wide-eyed book, and I absolutely love it. It explores a lot of different Black artists and musical groups, both from a historical context to modern day. And it's really diverse in who they cover in terms of genre, and it's just really, really awesome. I really love, honestly, anything wide-eyed does, like I always say, so this is no different. They do a really great job and is a really good starting point for some music history studies and showing the culture, and it's just really, really cool. I really enjoyed it. So all right, and then I have The Wall by Peter Seast, Growing Up Behind the Iron Curtain. This was really interesting, and I wanted to add this for when we're studying world history down the road during the Cold War. It's really interesting story to read about that time period, what it was like behind the Berlin Wall, on that side of the Berlin Wall, I should say, and it was just really, really interesting, and I think we'll make a really good addition to historical studies just to get a better sense of the culture at the time. And yeah, it was just really, really cool. All right, and up next, I really, really enjoyed this series, and I have a few more coming. There's actually a couple being released this month, which I'm really excited about, but this one is True History, The Founders Unmasked by Jennifer Sabin. This covers a lot of African American and Indigenous people from the American Revolution time and their contributions within the time that aren't very much talked about. Very similar to that other book I showed about unsung heroes in the American Revolution, particularly focusing on people of color in this one. And it's just very, very interesting. I really like that it covers the issues with the founding fathers and the hypocrisy, I'm sorry, I can't talk, the hypocrisy behind the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and the fact that we were creating a free nation and half of our people were not free, and we were suppressing quite a bit more, and it just explores that in a way. This is probably upper elementary, middle grade, I'd say, for reading level, but it's just really, really good. Highly recommend pairing with your history curriculum if you're a homeschooler, or just reading and encouraging your kid to read if you're not, just because so much of this history just goes untold, and so many people don't know the actual history behind this time period, and I'm all about not glorifying history, and this definitely de-glorifies it, so you're aware of where history really lies and how it impacts us today. And so this series does an awesome job about that, so definitely recommend that one. Next up, I have The Talk, Conversations About Race, Love, and Truth. This is a really, really cool book. It has so many different contributing authors that are amazing on their own, and it does a really good job talking about racism and prejudice, and how that impacts all of us and what we can do to combat those systems, and just really, really good, really important read. So I was really glad to add that to my shelf. Next, I have One Last Word by Nikki Grimes. This covers the poetry of the Harlem Renaissance, and this is going to be an awesome addition in our homeschool. It pairs poetry from the Harlem Renaissance with illustrations, and it's just really, really cool, and covers it in a way that's really unique, and I really, really like it. It's a really good addition to both history studies and English studies, so this was really good. Okay, and up next I have Say Her Name by Zetta Elliott. This is another poetry collection. This one covers the Black Lives Matter and racial justice movements, and it's just really, really well done. Really powerful poetry in here, and I really, really enjoyed it. Really nice illustrations to go along with the poems as well, and to kickstart a lot of conversations about these topics. So this is really, really awesome as well. Highly recommend adding that. And then next I have Getting Away with Murder by Chris Crow. This is the true story of the Emmett Till case. This is definitely more for your middle schoolers in terms of reading level. It's very wordy, not as many pictures, but it's very, very good. It covers the case, its legacy, why it's important to know today, and its impact of today, and how relatively little has changed, unfortunately, in our social justice and our criminal justice system. So it's very good. Highly recommend. Very good. Next, I have Words That Built a Nation, Voices of Democracy That Have Shaped America's History. This one is really awesome. It covers a lot of different thinkers and speakers, and a lot of different statements people have made throughout time. Really diverse in its selections as well, ranging from ones we know very well to ones that we haven't heard of quite as much. This one happens to be Frederick Douglass's The Meaning of 4th of July for the Negro, which is really, really good, and not often covered as much in history textbooks as, say, the Emancipation, I can't speak today, can I? The Emancipation Proclamation, or the Declaration of Independence, or those typical writings and speeches we all hear about. Also pulling from indigenous cultures, Chief Joseph making his statements. It's just really interesting, really gives a good historical background, gives also, which was interesting, responses by the public and people at the time. And so that was kind of interesting because you never really hear about how people reacted at the time necessarily as much as the speeches itself. So that was really very interesting. So really like this one for U.S. history studies down the road. And then, I told you I had a big stack. Next I have, this book is Antiracist, 20 Lessons on How to Wake Up, Take Action, Do the Work by Tiffany Jewell. This is an awesome book. It's geared for a younger audience, but you'll get a lot out of it as an adult, I believe, as well from reading it. It does a really great job about explaining the many, many facets of racism, both systemically, societally, everywhere. It's how it affects us in our daily lives, what you can do to combat it and racist systems, and reject these systems we have in place and become an anti-racist and apply those principles in your daily life. And it's just really, really good, really meaningful, and I definitely recommend you share this book, homeschooler or not, with your kids. So that one is very good. Next I have a couple of these Usborne subject books. I have philosophy and economics. I love both of them. What they do a very good job of is breaking big concepts down into little bite-sized snippets, I guess you could say. It's really good for, I would probably say upper elementary, probably middle school is going to get the most out of this, but it breaks hard subjects down to a way they can understand, especially economics, because economics, if you ever studied it, is not it's pretty dry, and it can be hard to understand at times. So having things that they can relate to and these big, overwhelming concepts in ways, like in little comics and things that they can understand. And I think exposing kids to these bigger ideas in ways they can understand from a young age is always a good thing. So I really liked having those for the future. Next I have Flesh and Blood So Cheap by Albert Martin. This covers the triangle flyer. Did I say flyer? The triangle fire. I don't know what's going on with me tonight, but it's really good. Another one that's for middle school and up, because it is pretty thick, pretty wordy, but it is very, very good. It covers the tragedy and the historical significance of it, and it's just, I really enjoyed it. So this will definitely be coming up for our history studies down the road. Next I have The Mystery of Life by Jan Paul Schutten. This one is really awesome. It covers basically everything you'd ever want to know in biology. Everything from evolution to cells to families of animals and plants. And it asks these questions that are really interesting. So it's like, what was the secret of the first life on Earth? How did they survive? How do you make life in a test tube? So it's just a really cool way to dig deeper into what we're studying in biology. So I think it'll just be a really cool thing to pull out every now and then and explore and ponder. So